what happened was a voluntary agreement with mortgage servicers where somehow the industry was going to police itself, and that fell completely flat and has worsened the crisis substantially. So we're very heartened that there is at least a plan on the table for the government to intervene, and it's a great start. And it's definitely going to help a great number of people, but it falls short in a number of critical areas.
Well, you know, I tried this morning and yesterday to delve into the summaries of how the plan would work, and I confess I had a lot of difficulty understanding, especially the portion where the president is talking about getting banks to agree to renegotiate deals to a certain income level. I think something about the 38, if the banks could get it down, the renegotiated loan to 38% of a family's income, the government would then get it down to 31%. Could you explain how that would work? Yeah, the mechanism, the reason you were confused is because a lot of the details are not laid out, and I think all of us are waiting to see how it plays out. But the way it's been explained so far is that if lenders agree to get the debt to income, and this means the borrower's gross income, the ratio of the monthly mortgage payment plus taxes and insurance to the borrower's gross monthly income, if the lender agrees to bring down the payments to 38% of debt to income, then the government will help subsidize dollar for dollar a reduction of that debt to income down to 31%. And that 31% is widely viewed and is an affordable mortgage amount. So if this works in getting the mortgage payments down to 31% for a substantial number of borrowers, it will be a significant help. But how would the banks do that? Would they accept a loss on the actual value of the property, or would they extend the length of the loan? How would they actually get that those payments down to 38% of a family's income? Yeah, I mean, I think you've gotten to sort of the crux of the issue here, and I can talk in a minute about sort of what's lacking here is enough of a stick to push mortgage servicers to actually significantly move from where they are now. But because this would all be voluntary, right? It would be voluntary. Primarily. The idea in the plan right now is to have mortgage servicers, the entities that actually are servicing these loans, that are collecting from the borrowers, that are contracted out to do that, to reduce interest rates to get the loan down to 38%. There's a mention that they can reduce the principal of the loan, cut actually the amount that is owed, but there's really very little incentive, it appears, to get them to do this, and this is really what's needed. The only stick so far in the plan is that institutions that get money from the TARP, from the financial bailout, are compelled to at least try to work within this program. They're not compelled to do loan modifications, but they're compelled to follow the criteria in the program, which as of yet has not been specifically laid out. But there is a stick there. There's some confusion, though, because these subprime mortgages, the ones that are causing such high rates of default, are bundled up in these complex securitizations where they're bundled to Wall Street and sold off to investors. So it's not clear, is it the mortgage servicer that needs to, that is the one that gets TARP money? Is it the entity that is the trustee on these securitization plans? So it is somewhat vague there. And so what are the sticks that are needed? The stick the biggest stick that's needed, it was mentioned in the plan. It's reform to the bankruptcy laws. It's a reform specifically. The bankruptcy laws that Vice President Joe Biden, as senator, was fierce in pushing through. That's absolutely true, and we hope that his position has changed. Certainly his position on the 2005 bankruptcy bill was problematic to those of us who are representing low-income people. The change that's needed at this time is a change that would allow bankruptcy judges in Chapter 13 proceedings to modify the terms of mortgages, that would allow judges to force servicers to change the terms of mortgages. Right now, interestingly enough, if there's a bankruptcy filing, a judge can change the terms of a mortgage on a second home, on a vacation home. A judge can change the terms of the mortgage unilaterally on a yacht. But on somebody's primary residence that they're living in, that their family's living in, under bankruptcy laws right now, they cannot do that. This is the absolute crux, that is the absolute critical thing that's needed for this plan to work. Congress needs to pass a bankruptcy reform bill that would allow judges to do a couple of things. First of all, to
cram down the amount of the mortgage owed. So many people are underwater; they owe more on their mortgage than their house is actually worth. And this plan right now would do little for them. In bankruptcy, what a judge could do is cram down the amount owed down to the value of the property, and then a judge would be able to modify the terms of the mortgage, reduce interest rates, freeze interest rates on adjustable mortgages, adjustable rate mortgages, extend the terms of loans. The reason this is so critical is not just because borrowers could then go into bankruptcy court and get the modifications needed to make their loans affordable. The reason it's critical is that right now there's really no stick to mortgage servicers, nothing to force them to do these modifications that are in everybody's best interest, and they're not doing them. If they're facing an impending bankruptcy filing, that's going to change dramatically, and it will cause them to do a lot more modifications within the parameters of the plan. So these changes are really critical for this plan to work.
And the other question is, how rapidly would this start to be implemented?
Well, they say that the implementation will begin on March 4th. But again, there's a couple of problems. First of all, we think that for it to become truly effective, these bankruptcy changes need to go through, and that's not going to happen by March 4th. And second, we think that there needs to be, at the very least, a voluntary foreclosure freeze by the industry to hold off on filing foreclosures and on moving forward on foreclosures for a significant period of time until this plan can be allowed to work. So although implementation starts March 4th, it's not going to work unless there are these other moving parts.
One of the other questions I have is, given the fact that the lack of regulation was a major reason why we got into this problem in the first place, government oversight of the lending practices, what's to prevent this new plan from becoming prey also to financial scam artists who will now suddenly deluge homeowners who are in problems with ways to get them to refinance or to fix their mortgage problems?
That's a very good point. I mean, I think in general there's a big problem out there in the market, whether it's through this plan or in general in the mortgage markets going forward, that, what mechanisms are in place to prevent these problems from occurring again. I mean, what's needed on is very broad and significant regulation of the entire financial services industry, not just of mortgage lending, but also of Wall Street. Credit rating agencies need to be very strictly regulated, and mortgage servicers and the investment banks that pool these mortgages together. There needs to be very broad regulation of the industry. One thing that is somewhat outrageous, or very outrageous, I think, to many of us, is that the same financial institutions that have taken billions and billions in bailout money from taxpayers are now using that bailout money, or indirectly using the bailout money, to continue lobbying in Washington to water down any potential regulations that come up. And this is a big problem. Our view is, look, you had your chance. You lobbied for years to weaken regulation, and look what happens. You've effectively destroyed the economy of the world, and now you have to back off. You're taking taxpayer money. You have to let the public institute policies that are going to be beneficial to the public. You can't continue to use your lobbying clout to, for example, lobby against the bankruptcy reform that I'm talking about, as you've done for many years. It's a new ball game, and the financial institutions really, there's a serious problem with them using money to lobby.
We just have 10 seconds, but any comment on the new director of the White House Office on Urban Policy, Bronx Borough President from right here in New York, Adolfo Carrion? Have you worked with him?
Yeah, I mean, we're encouraged here in New York City. We hope that it will give New York City advocates certainly a say and a place at the table, and certainly he's somebody that understands urban issues and issues that affect people of color and communities of color. So it is encouraging.
We'll leave it there. Josh Zinner, thanks for joining us, co-director of the Neighborhood Economic Development Advocacy Project, known as NEDAP, here in New York. This is Democracy Now! We go from TARP to tar sands. We're going up to Canada, where President Barack Obama is making his first foreign trip as president. Stay with us.